Matt Wilton. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the McGuire webinar tonight. We've been really excited to have three people on who are going to be playing a big part in the upcoming Manchester course. As most of you are aware, I'm lucky enough to be the regional director of the UK and lucky enough to be able to speak to the potential new students before the course, see them improve on the course, and then be part of their support network afterwards. So I'm the lucky one. But I've got tonight Greg, Charlotte, and Alex with us, and they're going to tell you a little bit, first of all, about who they are and why they're here. So, Greg, can you go first, please?
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, all. Greg Goldman. So, I'll start by describing what my speech was like pre-McGuire, and I'd say it was a mixture of covert and overt stammering, which I suppose some situations I could control quite well. Like if I was in a group, I felt quite comfortable because there was no pressure on me to speak, so I could just pop into the conversation, say a few words I could say, and then just drift out. Fine. Where I really struggled was speaking one-on-one with someone or on the phone because, they were talking to me, I had to speak. And that's when I just froze. And I was just going through life, just trying to get through every day, just avoiding every speaking situation that I was in. And it got to a stage where I then decided I couldn't go on like this anymore and something had to change. It was if I couldn't be the person that I wanted to be. I couldn't express myself and say what was in my head. And if you can't do that, then effectively I couldn't be me. So I did a bit of research. This was back in 2012 I joined, so 13 years ago. I did a bit of research on the internet and I come across some YouTube videos, I think, of members of the McGuire Programme that had posted these before and after videos. And I was just amazed at the transformation I was seeing. And this was in just a few days. So, I inquired about the programme, and 4 weeks later, I was heading to my first course in Swindon. And I was still nervous, I was still apprehensive about that. And one thing that sticks in my mind is I stopped off at the services on the M4 to have a bit of lunch. And I got back in the car and I just sat in the car for about 15 minutes. And I said to myself, what are you doing? Why are you driving up to Swindon? This is not going to work for you. And I was like that close to, it was either turn right and head back to London or turn left and head to Swindon. But I just said to myself, look, just go up there, just give it a day, see what it's like. If it's not for you, then turn round, you can come back. You're not going to lose anything. But I can safely say that it has been one of the best decisions that I have made in my life. And I'm so glad that I turned left and I didn't turn right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Greg. How about you, Alex?
Alex Parsons speaking. Hi there. A lot of similarities to Greg's story, really, but then differences in my stammer was very overt. It was all the tension in my mouth, trying to say words. It was pushing my tongue into the roof of my mouth to fight past all these blocks, and really noticed it in school, especially moving up to secondary school, then became more and more a problem for me. And then moving out of school, trying to get your independence as a young person starting out in your job, your work, all of this. And it became more and more, you need to do something about this. And just so happened, I turned on the Jonathan Ross show when Gareth Gates was talking for the first time since his McGuire journey, and just everyone doing that almost double take. That's that guy with the stammer. And seeing that difference, I decided it was for me. And this was 2007. So this was before all these webinars and all the information available, the testimonials from grads, existing coaches, all of that. So it was almost, you went up and you had a go. Being able to be part of these now, it's great to show what is available, what is achievable, and to see how we can help out, how we can reach out to the community in a way it wasn't available to me almost 18 years ago now. It's quite scary.
Thank you. Okay, that's brilliant. Over to Charlotte.
Charlotte Simpson. Hi, everyone. So I've been on the programme for nearly 10 years now. I joined when I was 22 back in 2016, and it was genuinely the best thing I've ever done, because I've just felt so much more confident and comfortable in myself. So a bit about my stutter. I was mostly covert. I thought I did a good job of hiding it from everyone, but in some situations, there was no way of hiding it. It just came out. So if I was put on the spot, or I felt like I was under pressure, if I had to make a phone call to somebody, that was then when the full extent of my real stutter would show. So I lived quite a lot of my life feeling quite anxious about being found out. I felt the need to keep up that pretense of being a fluent speaker so that I could just get by as best as I could. And it wasn't a pleasant way to live, because I wasn't being myself, wasn't being honest, I wasn't being true to myself. I felt comfortable, a bit like what you said, Greg, talking in groups or hanging around with friends, because I felt like I could just step back if I could sense a block was coming. But then one-on-one, there was no hiding. And it was when I graduated uni and I was going for job interviews where you can't change words around. You have to say exactly what it is you want to say to answer the questions properly, that I was stuttering a lot, and it was really getting me down. It was really knocking my confidence. So it was at that point I knew I really had to do something about it, because I'd had private speech therapy before, but it just hadn't worked, because I don't think that I took it seriously enough, and it wasn't intense enough for me to really take on the lessons. So I googled stuttering support therapy and I found the McGuire Programme, and I contacted Ian Much, who was RD for the UK North region at the time, and I attended the next upcoming intensive course in the North, which was in Manchester, close to me. So I just went to that course and absolutely loved it. I just thought it was great that it addressed not just the physical techniques, but also the psychological stuff that we often find ourselves having to go through. And about a year later, I became a certified primary coach, so I could keep coming back and not just working on my own speech, but helping others on the programme too. That was particularly important to me. And I've just kept pushing myself ever since. And this year, I went for course instructor intern, which was massive. And yeah, I'm just really glad that I embarked on this journey.
That's brilliant. Thank you, you three. If anyone has got any questions, please free to post it in the comments and we'll do our best to answer what we can. I know there's a few people here tonight, or I think there's a few people watching tonight who are fairly young and probably at school, college, and we've all been to school and college, believe it or not, in the past, some of us quite a long time ago, especially me. But I just wanted to ask a question to you three, really, and no one in particular. You know, for me, as a child, I had quite a lot of confidence when I was quite young, but the more I had to take responsibility over my speech, the more I had to try and do talking for myself, that's when my stammer became more of a problem for me. And it did really affect my self-esteem and my confidence. It made me feel like I had to avoid certain words and sounds that I particularly struggled saying, and some situations that I just avoided, like reading in class or even going for job interviews when I was older, just in case I had that stammer. And for me, the stammer was, at that point, I felt it's a massive weakness and a massive embarrassment. How did it affect any of you when you were young? Anyone?
Alex Parsons, I'll jump in on that one. I have a real memory of this. I grew up in the countryside, quite rural, and my class was 10 people maximum. So going to secondary school, starting year 7, and the history teacher, when we were in a history lesson, said, "Does anyone want to read the next paragraph?" And bang, hand was straight up. So I guess at that time I'd had a real comfort zone of, everyone in that class when there's only 10 of you, and all of a sudden you're in the secondary school. I just couldn't get a word out. And it was the laughter, the embarrassment, I guess, that comes with that. And that really knocked my confidence quite a lot, I would definitely say, and held me back from putting my name forward in those situations. And what McGuire has taught me, albeit it was then after school, but it's then taught me you've got the skills, the confidence to put your name forward for things. You've got the techniques, the capability of doing exactly what fluent speakers are doing as well.
Thank you.
And it just goes to show that, all stammers are different, and, whoever you meet, one person might say something about their speech and I'll be like, oh no, I'm fine in that situation. But it was like touching at school, what Alex said. So I can remember my stammer, my first recollection was in primary school, someone making a comment, like another child making a comment, and I thought, oh yeah, like perhaps I am a bit different. And then I can remember, so we had a little corner shop just a few houses down, just around the corner from us, and my mum used to ask me to pop down there, get some tea bags or sugar or whatnot. And I always remember now that I used to always get her to write it down. And then I would walk into the shop and I would just hand the note over to the person who was behind the counter. So I didn't have to speak. So even at that early age, I was starting to use tricks and avoid speaking with people. So the avoidance was already starting to come in. But strangely enough, when I moved into secondary school, my stammer virtually disappeared. don't know why. I was quite a confident child at school, so maybe that had something to do with it. But then in my late 20s, it just came back with a vengeance, and that's why I eventually went and got some help with it. But yeah, during my secondary school, it virtually went away, but then it came back again.
Yeah, my speech back in school, I think just because I was so covert, I don't really have any memories of being picked on as such or anyone making comments. It was more my own personal sense of feeling quite lonely with it because I didn't know anyone else who stuttered. And it's like I mentioned before, it was that constant feeling like I had to think ahead, look ahead for any words I might have trouble with, how I could change them. So just not really being able to relax. And I think it might have been that anxiety, that coming across as quite uptight, that other kids might have noticed more than the actual stuttering itself. So they thought I was quite shy, but once you get to know me, I'm not really a shy person. So it was quite upsetting, but I thought to myself, well, it's better that they think that than that I have a stutter, because that was just the mindset I had.
Very interesting. It's that feeling of isolation, like you said, is huge, because if you stammer, nobody understands what it's like, how it really does feel inside, how you really do get so anxious about a simple speaking situation. And I suppose unless you have a stammer, you won't understand that. Just like any other condition, I wouldn't understand if I haven't got that. So that's really good points. And I just want to touch a little bit on as well, what held you back so much to really want to do something about it. Like for me, I tried speech therapy and hypnotherapy. Nothing really helped me. And I was working in Tesco's, but I really felt like I was trapped. I really felt like I can't speak on the tannoy, no way. I can't phone up customers or staff members. I can't go to the managers' meetings. And I was given an opportunity to be able to run some departments. But when I had to go to those meetings, the fear level was huge. And I think that was the tipping point for me to do something about it. And I just wondered if any of you've got any particular examples of, look, this is why I needed to get help, because I was in such a position where I felt so trapped in life, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was one situation that was a turning point for me, and that was 1 month before I came on my first course. So this must have been February 2012. So I was out with a group of friends and was in a bar. And you go round in rounds, go up, buy drinks and stuff. And it came to my turn, so which was okay. I didn't mind this because I had tricks for this. I would say, give someone the money, someone in my group, say, oh, could you just get the drinks in? I just need to pop to the loo, and I'll come back. And go to the loo, come back, drinks were there, works a dream every time. Except this one night, it was busy now, and I came back a little bit too soon. And the guy I gave the money to get the drinks in, he said, oh, here you go, mate. You can get them in yourself now. You're back. I haven't been served yet. And as I was standing there, just my heart just started to quicken in my chest, and, you know, hands getting sweaty, and I was panicking out of control. And subsequently then, when the person behind the bar came over to take my order, I just stammered on every single word. And it almost felt as if the music had stopped in the place and everybody had stopped talking, and they were just looking at me and listening to me. And, you know, it hadn't and they wasn't, but that's what I was perceiving in my head. And it was just an absolute car crash. But I got through it. I got the drinks, took them back to the table, and I just immediately made my excuses and left. And as I was heading home, it's just feeling of like shame and embarrassment and guilt. And I was saying to myself, look, you're a 30-year-old man and you can't do one simple thing like go and order something at a bar, order some drinks. You can't do that. And I vowed to myself on the way home and that night that I was never going to feel those emotions again that way. And that's when, obviously, the next day I inquired about the programme and, got some help. And I think I can safely say I haven't ever felt like that since. So, I was true to my word.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Any other examples from either of you two? You don't have to.
Yeah, I'll definitely go. I think for me, it was, as I said, at the age of breaking away, moving out of home, getting your own independence and getting a job. I was pigeonholing myself into what can I do rather than what do I want to do? What job out there will there be less human interaction so I don't have to speak to people? What can I, if there was something where I was on a machine, headphones on so no one could talk to me, that would have been perfect in the way my brain thought at the time. And those jobs are just not fulfilling, and it's not gratifying to do what you can do rather than what you want to do, to not follow any dream that you might have or any interest. And it was realizing that in myself, I wasn't living life on the terms I wanted to. So that was when I decided it was time for change, which just so happened to be around that time that Gareth Gates was on Jonathan Ross. So it was all meant to be.
Brilliant.
First time in my life, as far back as I can remember anyway, just before I went on my first course, I couldn't speak. I couldn't even get any words out using tricks like I'd always relied on. I couldn't avoid, the words just weren't coming. And normally in the past, it had been a bit easier. And it was getting me down more and more. I don't know if it was because I was going through quite a stressful time at the time, quite a big transition of change in my life. So graduating uni, finding independence, trying to look for a job, that sort of thing. But I think it just all got a bit much, and I was struggling to even string a sentence together. So I think it was that feeling of feeling quite scared and anxious that I couldn't speak that pushed me to go on my first course, because I knew that I couldn't get away with trying to hide it any longer, just getting by. I had to face the facts and tell myself something that I had kept denying to myself and other people, that I do in fact have a stutter, whether I try and hide it or not. So I need to go on this course and try and regain control to make myself feel better again.
Fantastic. What great examples. And it's just crazy how much this can affect us and hold us back, and I had degrees of fluency where I didn't block for a few days, and then I had days where I couldn't get a word out, and it just fluctuated so much depending on how confident I was, what the situation was, whether my emotions were high. Your physical state is crazy, really. But And I think there's a lot of people as well that look into the McGuire Programme and go through that. I'm having a bad time, contact the programme. Then they have quite a good time. And they have a bad time and contact again. And a lot of people like that. And that's understandable as well, because it is a big step to do the McGuire Programme. And it does need a lot of courage and bravery. And I do believe that it's hard work and long hours and intensive. And so you do get amazing results, but you need to have to want to do this yourself. And if you're motivated enough to think, I'm doing this for me, I'm going to trust the program for 4 days, then you will be able to get to where you want to be, you know. But we're going to move on a little bit now to the course itself in Manchester. Greg and Alex are the instructors of the course, and Charlotte's going to be the course organizer for the Manchester course. Greg and Alex and Charlotte are all going to say a little bit about the course itself. So just briefly, over to Greg.
Okay, so just briefly about the techniques we're going to be using and why we're going to be using them. So on the McGuire Programme, so we believe that there are two sides to stammering. So we have a physical side, which is what people see when we speak. So all the freezing and all the silent blocks, word repetition, we could be closing our eyes, even like shaking our heads just to try and force that word out. I know I was guilty of that quite a few times. And then we have the psychological side. So this is all the stuff that people can't see. It's about all the stuff that's going on in our heads before we're speaking and during the speaking process. So word substitution, I was fantastic at scanning ahead for words. If a word was coming along that I knew I was going to get stuck on, probably an S word, I would swap it for something that was similar, maybe sometimes not similar, but a word that I could say. Or I would just avoid words or just avoid the speaking situation completely. And all the self-hate and the shame and the embarrassment that I talked about earlier, all that stuff that goes on in our heads if we've had a bad speaking situation and beating ourselves up. So it's good news, because on the program we have techniques to counteract all these. So firstly, we address the physical problem, and we do this by breaking your speech down and slowly rebuilding it. And we start by getting your breathing correctly. So we establish a strong, powerful flow of air over our vocal cords, which we need to speak. So it's not freezing and we're not getting those silent blocks. And then we focus on other techniques, like we start slowing our speech down, and so we can formulate words correctly. And then we start building on top of that and adding layers and adding techniques to deal with all of that struggle and distortion that people see when we speak. And then after this, we deal with, like I said, the much bigger problem, which is the psychological problem. And, you know, how we see and view ourselves as people and as people that stammer. And we will teach you some great techniques that enables you to be open and honest with, firstly, yourself and then with other people. And it may seem strange now, but then you'll learn to accept yourself, you know, as a person who stammers. And once you do that, and not hide away from it anymore, but face it head on and take control with a positive mindset. And from my experience on the program, that's where my true control come from, was just accepting, yes, I've got a stammer, so how can I live with this and how can we get along together? So they're the two main techniques. We have a physical technique and a psychological one.
Thank you, Greg. And I think it's important to realize as well that we take you step by step through this. So I was petrified doing my first course, and I think most people are, because they're facing what they don't really want to have to deal with, especially if you're going through a good period of speech. Do I really need to do it? You know, but we will take you through step by step each day, and you'll be with the right kind of people that we feel the best fits for you to help support and coach you. So this is where the trust comes in. You need to be trusting us, giving it your best shot. It's all we ask for those 3-4 days, and it will make a huge difference. Alex.
Yeah, really well said there, Matt. And to reiterate something that Charlotte said, that everyone that will be helping new people on the program, new students, is someone who is working on their own speech as well. This, for me, is where it differs from speech therapy, differs from other programs that are out there. Other programs exist, and if they are helping people with their speech, great. For me, it wasn't until I was in a room full of 80 people who all stammered that I got that real sense of, okay, this is something serious. This is people all here to do something about it. And everyone that you will be interacting with on the course, they want to help you. That's the really big thing. There's no financial gain. There's just the want to help people come back again and again and again. For me, this is probably course number high teens, 18, 19. Greg, I don't even know. Matt, probably over hundreds. And Charlotte, 10 years on the course. So loads of courses as well. And then what we do day by day, we break it into manageable chunks. So we're not overloading you with information. Is there a lot of information? There is. And it's not worth trying to pretend there isn't. But it's delivered in a way that you take it in. 50-minute sessions, plenty of time to get breaks in between. Obviously, breaks for lunch, breaks for dinner. And it's delivering the information in a way that each session it's going to make more sense. So we begin with Thursday, and we call this Physical Thursday. So it's learning, as Greg said, the physical elements of our stammer. Then on Friday, we go into Psychological Friday, really getting to the heart of why we stammer, what we can do about it. And then Saturday, we call Bringing It Together. It's understanding why the Friday and the Thursday matter, why they are two separate things, but why when it comes together as a whole, that's the real success of the McGuire program. And that's why so many people come back time and again.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Alex. I think it's also important to realize that your confidence builds on this course as you go through it. You start off feeling, I did personally, felt really like, do I really want to be here on the Thursday? The Friday, I felt a bit more confident. I could have still gone home. The Saturday, I thought, wow, this is really, really powerful and really building my confidence up. And I went home thinking, I'm never going to stammer again. I think I'm cured. I think this is just unbelievable. But I did stammer again. I had problems with the B word, first of all, and I had to phone up my coach, who was Martin Coombs, and ask him, Martin, what am I doing wrong? Why am I having tension on this B word? And he'd say, have you tried this technique? Have you tried that technique? And he'd coach me and help me to be able to work out where I'm going wrong so that I could correct it. And that support network is really important. Charlotte, can you explain a little bit about the support network and your experiences as well?
So as Alex touched on, everybody in that room on the intensive course also has a stutter, and it's that really helps us to feel like we're being supported by other people who just get it. So the coaches, the people running sessions, we've all got stutters, so we know exactly how you feel. We've learned the techniques, we've done everything that has been asked of us on these intensive courses. So the one thing that we truly believe is we would never ask you to do something that we haven't already done ourselves. It's about setting that example, and that support that you get on the intensive course, it doesn't end on the Sunday. You will have that access to that supportive network of fellow stutterers for the rest of your life. It's a lifetime support package, so you'll be assigned primary coaches that you can ring whenever you want, how often you want after your first course, so they can help you keep practicing those techniques, set your challenges, asking how you're doing, how you're feeling. It's just someone to check in with, someone to talk to about how you're feeling and where you're going with your speech, to help to minimise that sense of self-isolation that can be quite powerful. And in terms of the benefits it's brought me, that support network, I talk to people from the programme all the time. I've made some really good friends. My coaches really supported me with overkilling my feared words and sounds. They came out for contacts with me. I joined my local support group as soon as I could, so that I could keep up the techniques I'd learned over the weekends. I just went to them as often as I could. And then a few years after I joined, a lot of it moved online. So I was going to Zoom support groups, hosting Zoom support groups in a coaching capacity to help others. And it's just that sense of being able to tap into it whenever and how often, well, as many times as you want, as many times as you feel you need to, really. It's always there, and that's the beauty of it.
Thank you. Yeah, that is such an important part of the programme, and so many people just do the course and go home and then don't come on a second or third course, or don't go to a support group or a Zoom support. And yeah, your speech might be all right for a few days, weeks or months, but you want to sustain it. And you know, if you're going to invest in the program, both financially and time-wise, you really want to give it your best shot. So I would strongly emphasize that you look at this as a lifetime support network afterwards, and not just a 4-day course. And you get to meet so many inspiring people. I've been really inspired by so many, including the 3 people on tonight, you know. So it is a huge part of my life, but a lot of other people as well, to be able to know that other people are going through the same problems, the same issues you've got with your speech, and have come out the other side. You know, that really helped me. Alex?
Yeah, just really needed to echo what you said there. I was having a conversation with a coach just the other day, so really active on the support network, and he'd said if he could only keep 10 people that are currently in his life, 5 of those would be from McGuire. It's just that's just really resonated with me, and it reminded me of it when you were speaking then, Matt.
No, thank you. And I did say earlier there'd be a few people on potentially that are younger. This program can help people at any age. I've had people, we've got somebody who's going to be attending one of the next courses who's very elderly. should I say, without his age. And also we've got people who have joined this year 11, 12 years of age, but it's had to come from them. There's a lot of people, a lot of even older teenagers that don't really want it. They just come on the course and think, oh, I'll just give it a go, but not try hard. That doesn't work, and do not think I need to do the course for my mum or my dad or my friend or my partner. You're doing it for yourself. And that is absolutely key. I've kept you quite a while, longer than I thought. I just want to mention a few things. John, really nice for you to put a few comments in the bar there. You're a graduate as well from the States. We've also got a question here from Jeza. Okay, have you done anything since joining the McGuire Programme that you would never have dreamed you could have done before? And how did that make you feel? Anyone? Yes. I've just chucked that at you, I know. Anyone
so many. Yeah, I can kick this off. So many things that have, that I never thought would be possible. And I suppose one that stands out a bit that I'm quite proud of was probably about 3 months after my first course on the programme. I was confident, my speech was good. I joined a public speaking group called Toastmasters, and I was going there, and I entered a speaking competition within the group I was in, and I was up against, I think, about 11 or 12 so-called fluent speakers, and I was the only person who had a stammer, and we had to talk about 2 minutes. It was quite spontaneous. They gave us a subject right on the spot, table topics, and we had to speak for 2 minutes, but using great control and, engaging the audience. And yeah, I won that speaking competition, and I've still got the certificate at home, and that's just one thing that I thought I would never be able to do. Greg Goldman, the stammerer, winning a speaking competition against fluent speakers. And that's just one. There's so many I could tell you all night, but I'll pass over to the others.
Yeah, straight away, a best man speech that I've had the same two best friends since I was about 12. One of them was due to get married before I had started the McGuire Programme, so we must have been 19, 20. And he'd asked me, I said yes, but all the time the back of my head was like, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? And then I'm going to say recently, but 2019, the other one got married. And as soon as he asked me, I said yes. And there was none of those negative thoughts. I knew I could do it, and I wanted to do it. The other one, the earlier one, didn't end up happening. The marriage didn't happen, which bad for them. But for me at the time, I was, oh, phew, I don't have to do that speech. So the ability to do a best man speech, never thought that was happening.
Thank you.
I did a presentation at work in front of, must have been about 100 people. So it was a few months after my first course, about 9 years ago now. And the chief executive officer was there. And I remember she tweeted about me, how she thought that what I'd done was really brave and inspirational. And I was like, oh, wow. So it was things like that I just wouldn't have done before I joined the programme. No chance. But just the confidence that the programme gave me to do something like that, I just felt so proud of myself, and I've wanted to keep pushing myself since then. So I joined Toastmasters to practice my public speaking. I've repeatedly pushed myself, not just on the programme, but also at work, personal life. Just keep setting myself those extra challenges to take my speech and my confidence to the next level.
That's brilliant. Yeah, for me, it's also those little what people would find really easy things like ordering food or being able to just phone up the bank and not think, what about my speech, which was a huge thing before, you know. But I think my main one, I wasn't going to say this, but I will, was my friend was getting married, and he asked me if I was going to his wedding in Lyon in France, and I was like, I can't afford it really, Paul. And he said, well, what if you were master of ceremonies and I paid for you to have the flight over and to stay with us in Lyon? We're going to get married in a campsite. Well, they were going to get married in the UK before. I'm not a vicar. So they were going to get married beforehand, but they wanted me to run the wedding. And I was like, why are you asking me? And he said, well, because you're capable of doing it. It was such an amazing experience to be able to support the best man who was really worrying about his stammer, even though he doesn't have a stammer, and just to be able to run the whole event for that day for them was something that I just still now think, wow, did I really do that? You know, how much from that person before the McGuire working in Tesco's to this person now, what a difference in confidence, in personality. It's like two different lives, and I'm sure you feel a bit like that as well, you know. Anyway, I've got another question. Actually, we have got another one. I don't think, to be honest, I'm going to be able to. Where are we? 1 second. Just going to bring it up. Okay, I don't think I know the answer to this one because I don't know much about empowering voices. Do any of you know about empowering voices? All I know is that our techniques work and they're put in place in an order to build your confidence, take control of your stammer, take control of all that fear, eat away at all that fear, and make yourself feel like, even though I stammer, I can be the best speaker I can be. I don't know if any of you know about empowering voices at all.
I don't, but having friends on other programs, what I've seen is the difference on McGuire is the support network. It's what Charlotte touched on. It's the improvement days that happen. I think, Charlotte, you had one in Manchester yesterday.
Yeah.
It's the support groups. I run Bristol support group and we meet once a month. I speak to 4 or 5 people, even sometimes daily, just because they've called me for a chat that doesn't even end up being about, can you help me out with, what can I do about? It just ends up being 3 minutes of, how you doing? Yeah, I'm fine. So the support network is what really sets McGuire apart from any other program I've come across, really.
Okay, yeah, and just to add a little bit from Darshan, no worries, Empowering Voices is a UK charity doing costal breathing techniques, and I believe Starfish is another. Yeah, I know a little bit about Starfish. I know they focus on the costal breathing techniques. I cannot, and I wouldn't want to comment on other programs anyway, because it's completely up to them. I don't know a lot about if they use the psychological side that we use and if their program is set up the way that our program is. We know that works. And like Alex said, it's the after support and the ongoing support and the worldwide network that makes the massive difference. But Darshan, you've got one more question. We're just going to fire this one in before we do leave. Interesting, really. I hear there's a mechanical nature of speaking that's encouraged. Yes, is this still so interesting, having a mild stammer and thinking about having to be mechanical with the technique? Does anyone want to answer that one before I say a few things?
Yeah, I can say about the mechanical nature of speaking, and it's what I touched on with the techniques. And I said on the Thursday, so we're going to be using a new physical speaking. We're going to be starting it off with, teaching you a new way of breathing when you speak. So when you're learning anything new, of course, you need to isolate and exaggerate every component of that. And a good way of looking at it and how we look at it on the program is, say you're learning a new sport, and we like to see speaking as a sport, the sport of speaking. If you're learning a sport, say it's tennis or football, you have to learn all of the components, right? You have to learn how to serve first. Then you have to learn your drop shots, your net shots, your baseline shots. You can't just expect to turn up on court at Wimbledon and be playing in the Wimbledon final. It takes time for you to learn and master all those techniques. And it's the same with speaking. So we'll be stripping your speaking back and we'll build in a strong foundation. And then how long it takes you to get out that mechanical stage is entirely up to you. How much work do you want to put in? How badly do you want this? And if you work really hard, like with a sport, if you put in lots of practice time and you're practicing all the time, you're going to get really good really quick. If you don't practice at a sport, then you're not going to be very good at a sport. So it's all up to you. It's all about progression. And, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. It's the same with everything in life.
Brilliant. Thank you, Greg. That's amazing. And I also think it's important to realize that it doesn't matter if your stammer is overt or what you might think is someone severe, or covert, someone that's really mild. I mean, mine was, you could say, mild. If I could avoid the B, D, and G and P words, my stammer was very mild. But if I had to say them, then it would bring my stammer out. But I honestly can say to you that when I did my first course on that Thursday, and they got me to practice the breathing and then have to speak like this, I thought, I don't want to sound like a robot all my life. Geez, this is awful. Do I really need to sound like this all my life? Well, just like Greg has said, that was the foundation that I had to learn and adapt to before I could then build up the words I was saying more per breath and building up my confidence, because I had to start saying my B's, D's, G's, and P's. I couldn't avoid them anymore. Otherwise, what was the point in doing the course? I had to start saying all the letters of the alphabet. So there will be times when you think, geez, have I got to do this? But it's all taught to you for a reason. And I obviously know that now, but I didn't at the time. And it did make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But there are things on this program that make you feel a bit uncomfortable because you're facing your fear. You're facing what you've hidden for such a long time, Anyway, I think we'll call an end to it tonight. I said it'd be half an hour, and we've been 53 minutes. So thank you so much, Charlotte. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Alex, for coming on tonight. If you want to see these three in action, come to the Manchester course, which is very, very soon, coming up in November. And also, we are taking all of the bookings for next year as well. The Bristol course is the first course at the end of February next year. And there's a few people already booking on that. So thank you all. And yeah, we'll see you all soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone.